Well, today on my Legends podcast, I have John Stettin from Pastthewire. John is one of the best handicappers that I know. Also puts out great content on his website, Pastthewire. Great interviews, great videos about handicapping, lots of critiques to make the game better. Jonathan has lots of ideas. But anyway, thanks for joining me, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me, Julian. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to quickly give your bio for folks that haven't seen your videos or read my interviews. You're a New Yorker. I think you're a Brooklyn guy, right?
Yes, sir.
Brooklyn guy. You can tell by the accent. You started going to the racetrack. Your dad was a teller. He'd go up to Saratoga and he'd stay there for the summer, take the whole family. And I
Correct.
guess
Yeah.
then
Ever since I can remember, when I was a little kid, we spent every summer at Saratoga. My dad worked there, so back then, the Naira used to bring the downstate, workers all up to Saratoga for the month of August.
yeah, and you just kind of learned on the fly. You started hanging around some of the big players up there, and they taught you how to handicap.
Pretty much, yeah. My dad actually was the first one to teach me how to read the form, but I developed a liking for the betting aspect of the game very, very young. I was up around that environment in Saratoga, so I got to know a lot of bettors, a lot of the people around the racetrack. I was running around when we would go downstate. When I was very young, I would go to the track on the weekends. So yeah, I learned and picked up on it, and once I saw you can make money doing it, I really got to like it.
Yeah. Well, I would describe you as a traditional sheet player, but a player that's learned, who's been able to evolve with the game and knows how to use the numbers in their own way. Is that fair?
It is fair, but I would say this: there was a time when the sheets were probably a very big, well, they were a very big part of my handicapping and my prep work in doing races. Uh, Today, and it's part of what you said, evolving. Today, I would say that watching replays and taking my own notes and saving my own notes on each horse, and Formulator allows you to do that. When you use Formulator, you can make notes on horses and races, like the trip notes that you see when a horse runs. You'll have access to those, but you'll also have access to your own. And when you add them for a race, anytime that horse runs, they will appear and be there for you as long as you have an active Formulator subscription. So that, I would say, at this point, is the most valuable tool to me.
Yeah. Well, what kind of trips do you look for in particular? Like for example, when I think about trips, anything that's obvious to the public, anything that gets a large comment, gets a comment in the form, tends to be kind of overvalued, undervalued. What am I trying to say? They're under,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I get it. I
yeah.
know. I think everybody knows what you mean, right?
They're overbet
Right.
on the odds board. So I tend to look for things a little more subtle. When a horse maybe makes a move into a fast fraction on the outside or something like that, or next to a favorite, and was able to run with the fast horse for a while. What kind of trips do you look for, and what would get a note in Formulator?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. You try and look for things that are not blatantly obvious to everyone. That, I think that's where you really get an edge. And to say what you look for, I don't really quantify it that way, Julian, because you never know. Every race is different. And sometimes I don't only look for horses that ran a troubled line, or had trouble. Sometimes I'll also look for horses that the race was not as good as it looked. It looked like a monstrous race, but for some reason it really wasn't. Everything just went right. And what I found, to answer your question in the way that I would be most comfortable, is that when you watch replays, I tend to do better spotting things, good and bad, when I watch a day later, when there's no adrenaline, when I've already forgot about my bet, and I watch a couple of different times. Because what people tend to do when they watch a replay, they watch one of three things. They watch who they bet, who's on the lead, or who the announcer's calling or making a big move. Okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of times when you do that, you lose a horse that never got a call, that's been buried between horses, sandwiched, uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is a key to me. Never really had a chance to run. And when I say uncomfortable, I mean sometimes you can tell. I can't remember the horse's name, but there was a horse that ran last week at Saratoga that, my note was this horse was buried on the inside. When he got off the inside, he wound up between horses, and he never looked comfortable. He never really got into any kind of a rhythm. When he finally got out, the race was really over, and he kind of plugged up and ran third or fourth. Uncomfortable is something that you will recognize yourself, but you'll never see that in a running line in a racing form. Be it Brisnet, Formulator, Daily Racing, anything. So things like that I tend to look for. And the key to me is watching it a couple of different times, because you think you could watch a race once and spot everything on every horse. I don't really think that's possible. So it becomes a time-consuming process for me anyway, which is one of the reasons why I'll only bet one card or one sequence. You'll never see me betting 2 or 3 different cards because I'm just not prepared to do it. There's not enough time. It's challenging this time of year for me because I like to do Saratoga and I like to do a little of Del Mar. So often what I'll do is I'll kind of cheat, for lack of a better term, and I'll look at the last 5 races at Saratoga and look at the last 5 races at Del Mar, because I could manage to get 10 races in over the course of a 4 or 5 hour study session. I can't get 20 in. You know what I mean? That's it just takes me a long time. I'm not one of those players that looks at the PPs for 10 minutes and goes in thinking I'm ready. I just don't do that.
Will you take notes of every single horse in a race, or just something that was memorable to you, or maybe memorable against?
I try to take as many as I can. I can't honestly look here and you in the face and tell you, yeah, I get notes on every horse, because sometimes I don't. And it becomes so time consuming that if there is nothing noteworthy and I'm comfortable that whatever it says in the form is going to reflect what my observations are as well, I'll just leave it be.
And if you handicap 10 races, let's say 5 at Del Mar, 5 at Saratoga, how many of those 10 will you actually have a wager?
Well, if I don't bet the pick 5s in both places, which sometimes I do, but if I don't, then maybe 2 or 3 wagers. You know what I mean? Maybe one. Today I looked at Saratoga. I would love to bet the card. I thought it was a very weak card for Saratoga. I didn't see a lot of opportunities. I saw one horse in the second race that caught my eye that I like a little bit. And that'll be the only bet I'm going to make. You know what I mean? I'll bet the second race alone. And that's it. And, they argue and they, differ in opinion on how many people that play this game actually win. But we know it's a very small percentage. I think it's safe to say on anybody's standard, it's less than 5%. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's far less. I think it's far
less.
Right.
Right. Some people say 2%, 1%, but I think anybody could agree that it's less than 5. Okay. And there's reasons for that. Okay. And one of the reasons is that people play too many races and aren't disciplined enough not to chase after bets that they don't really like. I treat every wager that I make like a serious investment. If I'm not ready to make a serious investment, I'm cool with watching the race, and maybe I'll see, like, I'll watch all the races today and I'll take notes because I don't know when that might help me in the future. Just because I didn't bet doesn't mean I'm not watching and paying attention and taking notes, but I try and make my bets count, which I think is why I've been a successful and profitable bettor for as long as I've been able to do it. I don't play for a living anymore, but I did for 20 something years, which is something that a lot of people can't say. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you say play for a living, okay, it's a little different than a lot of people take it. That doesn't mean grinding out a 1 or 2% ROI over the course of time. Okay. That wouldn't have done it for me. All right. I had to pay my bills and pay my way from betting on horses, which means I had to win enough money to cover my lifestyle. And I like to live well. So it wasn't always easy. It was a very, very, very tough lifestyle for a long, long time. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that I could do it today. The game has changed so much that it was never easy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a full-time job and then some, but I don't think I could do it today.
Yeah, I had a couple of years where I tried, and I had 2 great years, and then a break even year, then a year I lost, and this was in the mid to late '90s, and you were talking about being happy with a 1 or 2% return on your investment. That would actually be great. I mean, the game is so tough these days. 20 years ago, I'd wait for a 5-1 to make the lead, and I'd be so confident. I'd make the play, no problem. Nowadays, that same 5-1, you'd wait for him. He'd go off 8-5, and then he doesn't even have to win. So this idea that you have to be a good player to enjoy the game, you have to do it for a living. I think it's okay to have other streams of income because rich folks in all the lines of business, they try to make it wherever they can. So there's no really need to have to do it for a living. There's other ways you can make money doing this and make money doing Pastthewire and whatever else you do.
Absolutely. I love the game, and now I play it differently. Now I play to make some big scores over the course of the year, and the way that I bet is different than most. I'm willing to cash less tickets, but win more money over the course of a year. So when I win, I want to make it count. When I'm right, I want to make it count. So I'll use less horses. I'll leave out horses that I know full well can beat me because I'm doubling or tripling up on the horse I like better. And that means I'll cash less tickets. And sometimes I'll walk away and people will say, you're crazy. You like that horse. You knew he could win. Why didn't you use him? I'm like, well, because I used the other horse 4 times. And what people don't realize is that, when you hit a pick 5 that pays $6,000, you know what I mean? And you've got it 10 or 20 times, it makes up for a lot of those ones you didn't hit. You know what I'm saying? So when I lose, I'm like, okay, this one's rough, but we'll get them, we'll get them down the road, and that's a tough mentality to have because it goes against human nature. I think our nature is to cash as many tickets as we can and use every horse that we think possibly has a shot because we want to be right and we want to cash that ticket, Yeah. I don't play that way. I don't want to have it for 50 cents. I want to have it for $5 or $10 with the horses I like best, or key here and spread there, or key here and spread there. And like I said, I think it just goes against human nature, and it's tough for people to embrace that. And the same thing in vertical wagering. I don't box. Okay. And my dad, if he was still alive, he would jump in this and say, you're crazy. You got that hard head of yours. You know what I mean? Stubborn. But let's say I like the 2. Okay. I'll bet the 2 to win, and I'll bet 2-4, 2-6. That's it in the exact, I don't bet 4-6. I don't box. I don't bet 4-2. I bet 2 to win, 2-4, 2-6. That's it. Yeah. 3 wagers, and if it comes 4-2 or 6-2, I lose. But instead of having it for, let's say I was going to bet a $50 exacta, instead of having it 25 each way, I got it for 50. So when I'm right, it covers up those losses. You know what I mean? It erases those times you're wrong. And once you do the math and track yourself over a course of time and see the difference in betting that way as opposed to the other way, I defy anybody to tell me that it makes economic sense to do it the other way, because I think it proves itself that it doesn't, especially to people that box. Yeah. And I have friends that do it. They'll say, well, I caught a $500 exacta because I boxed it. I'm like, today you did, but talk to me after 6 months, Well,
that's where I disagree with you, John. So when you first came on my radar, Barry Spears sent me a punch. I think it was a pick 4 or pick 3 that you had. You had a $30 pick 4, pick 3. You keyed on a 14-1 that was in the middle of all this. And I mean, you just crushed it. I think you made a couple $100,000 with this punch. It was massive. And that's when I called you up and said, I got to talk to this guy. And but the thing that caught me is if that 14-1 wins and you get nothing else, that would just drive me crazy. And so I think it's a personality thing. I don't deny that you're right. Most winning players that I know play like you. They have 3 or 4 days within a year that makes them or breaks them, and then they may lose a little bit of money most days. They may lose most months, but they have those 1 or 2 months, 1 month or 1 or 2 plays that really they kill it. And those are the players that I know. A lot of the players I know play that way and they win that way.
And it like I said, it's tough to do. It takes a certain kind of mindset to do it, you know. I go back to a recent experience in the Kentucky Derby a couple of years ago. I loved on the card a horse named Digital Age in the turf race before the Derby.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Chad Brown horse, went off 7-1 with Javier Castellano and won the turf race that leads into the Derby every year. What is it? The Turf Classic, whatever that race
is.
I
can't think of it. Yeah.
And I wound up alive in the pick 5 and the pick 6, and I only bet about $1,000 all told. Okay. And I was alive in the pick 6 with Sol Volante, who was like a 25, 30-1 shot in the Derby. And the horse that ran second, what was his name? Honor AP, Mike.
No, you love that horse. I know you're talking about. That was that horse that was
John Sheriff's horse, I think.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Honor Code?
No, it wasn't Honor Code. That was Shug. But you know the horse I'm talking about.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
And I was alive with, Sol Volante for 1.1 million, and that Honor horse that ran second for about half that. Okay, for about 500,000 on a $900 bet. So I remember, and I was confident going into the race. I thought both of my horses had a really good shot. And I says to my wife before the race, I says, "Oh, this Derby is going to be interesting. I'm alive for $1 million plus and $500,000 with 2 horses." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I can't watch. Just tell me if we won." So the race goes off, and it was a shame because right out of the gate, I knew I was dead. Sol Volante was like 30 lengths back. He wasn't going to win. And Mike Smith's horse, I think, had Sol Volante beat. He wasn't going to win either. So I said, "Oh, well." And Authentic went to the lead and was rolling along. And I just knew I was in trouble. I'm like, this is not going to work out for me. So let me just watch the race. As it turned out, the Honor horse with Mike Smith come flying very wide and ran second. And probably with a different trip could have made it interesting. Okay, but didn't. After the race, yeah, it stung a little bit. But, I told him if we didn't win, my friend calls up and says, "I can't believe you lost that. You must be sick." And I was like, "Nah, it wasn't my day." You know what I mean? Before you know it, I'll hit one of these and it'll erase this one. You know what I mean? I lost $900. I'll survive it. You have to put yourself in position to make those kind of scores in order to make those kind of scores. If
you had no win bet, you had no win bet on Digital Age at all.
I did bet Digital Age to win. Yes, I did. I made a little bit of money on Digital Age. I liked him, but nowhere near $500,000 or $1 million. You know what I mean? I think I bet 1,000 or 2,000 to win, and he was 7-1. So it was a decent day, but it was not what it could have been. Okay. And there are many days where I wouldn't have bet Digital Age. I happened to that day, but there are many days where I wouldn't have. Like the ticket that you were talking about. I don't think I bet that horse separately, and a lot of times it depends. See, the Derby is such a crazy race that I had to bet Digital Age to win because there's 101 ways to lose the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
That day that you're talking about, I felt very, very confident that had that horse won, I was going to hit the next race. I felt, quote, lack of a better term, covered, Yeah. I didn't feel vulnerable. So if I feel vulnerable, I'll bet the horse alone. If I don't feel vulnerable, I won't. I'll take my shot. And yeah, it stings, but I look at it like a business, okay? Black column and red column, profit and loss, simple as that. I want to keep my black column as high as possible, my red column as low as possible. So I try and make as few losing bets as possible. So if I've got an investment in a pick 3 or a pick 4 or pick 5 with a nice price single, and I'm comfortable in those other 2 legs, I look at it like I don't have to put anything in the red column, because if he wins, I'm going to win. Yeah. Does it burn me sometimes? Yes. But again, I think if you really study it over the course of a year or a meet, I think you wind up better if you can adapt that approach, which I know is not for everybody. I'm not trying to sell my way to anybody, because it will lead to a lot of frustrating, heartbreaking days. If I could tell you how many times I had to drive home with my dad from the racetrack hearing, if you only put in the favorite, or if you only reversed that exacta, or if you only added this horse, why the hell did you leave out Velasquez on a 4 to 5 shot and a pick 6? Who does that? And it was long rides home, So I get it. It's not for everybody,
One of the smartest things you ever told me was that, because I don't play a lot of horizontal bets. I like to play. I'm a win better, maybe some exactas, but you said the races that you usually lose are the ones where you have the most horses. You use the most.
Oh,
horses.
Absolutely.
And the reason why you said that is because it's probably because you don't understand the race that well, and that's
right.
And that's,
you don't have a great opinion. You know what I mean? So you're fishing, and that's where you're going to lose.
Exactly. So what you end up doing in that situation? Let's say, for example, you like the second in Del Mar today, and the second race in Del Mar today, right. And there's pick 5s. I think there's probably there's a daily double, of course, there's other things. Let's say, for example, you'd have to spread out in one of the races in the sequence. Would you just, not get involved in the horizontals and bet them to win, or do some daily doubles? How would you handle it instead?
Well, today's a perfect example. The only horse I like at Saratoga today is in the second race. It's a horse named Ace Up Her Sleeve, the 4-horse, who's 8-1 on the morning line. Okay. Probably if she's live, will go off less than that, but maybe 5-6-1, whatever, 9-2. You never know today. Used to be a time when if there was an inquiry, you knew if it was going to come down. Today, not so much. And you saw the morning line and you had an idea whether or not it was accurate. Today, not as much as in the past. But I looked at the rest of the card. I would love to start to pick 5 with this horse. It's the perfect kind of single. It's not the favorite. I looked at these other races. I just don't like them. I don't want to get involved in them. I don't want to worry about it. I don't want to have to bet to win and bet to pick 5 on a card I don't really like and a horse that I'm not in love with. I'm just, I just like her. So I'm just going to bet to win. And that's it. That's my only bet for today. I'll just bet that horse to win. And if, she wins, I make a few dollars. If she loses, we live to fight another day. So I think that answers your question. I'll just, it depends on the sequence. If I can get my arms around the sequence, I'll do it because I like to bet those wages because they can pay a lot more. But if I don't like the sequence, I won't force it. You know what I mean? I won't go after a sequence I don't like. I've been doing this too long to do that at this point. Like I said, I try and treat wages as an investment. So if I'm going to invest, I gotta like the terms. I gotta like the circumstances. I gotta like everything around it. You know what I mean? If you go buy a house, okay, if you go buy a stock, if you're going to get in enter a contract, you're going to read it, you're going to do it, you're going to either like the house, you're going to like the stock, you're going to like the perspective, you're going to like the contract. It's got to, if you're going to put money up, you got to like it. You know what I mean? If you love a Cadillac Escalade, okay, and you like only black or white, and you go to the dealership and he's got a green one, and he says, hey, I'll give you a great deal on this green one. I don't buy it. You know what I mean? I want what, you know what I'm saying? You can give me whatever.
I'm the guy who buys the green one.
Right, yeah.
I'm the guy who looks for the value. And
I don't do that. So I've got to like everything. If I'm going to give you my money, I want to like what I'm giving it to you for.
And I know you buy the undercoat. So one thing that you said that was really really smart. First time I ever heard it, and I've heard of other places now as well, is you would love to see them go back to higher denominations on horizontal bets.
Oh, yes.
$2, $5, whatever. One thing you didn't like is when they started doing $1, 20 cents. Because what happened is that the whales, whatever you want to call them, these computer bets, they could spread out more easily than anybody else. So they can put 5,000 or 6,000 combinations or whatever into a combination, and they could really just destroy the price on a sequence where you had some long shots. Why don't you explain that to us again?
Well, and it's not only the whales, okay? And it's not only the CAW players. When you have a 50 cent or a 20 cent minimum on a wager, okay, you really dilute the pool, okay? You decrease the payout, so it's less than the parlay. You're lucky to get the parlay. When it used to be the pick four at Naira would pay 4, 5, 3 times the parlay regularly. Now you're lucky you get a little over the parlay, okay? And that's the 50 cent denomination, okay? It allows everybody, not just the computer assisted wagerers, the CAW players, to spread. Allows everybody to spread. It allows the guy with a $200 bankroll for that pick five to cover a lot of combinations that he wouldn't cover for $2. Okay, so it allows people that aren't as good a handicapper or aren't as astute as me to buy into the winning combination because they're spreading. Okay, it takes away their having to make a decision and having to be right. I'd rather have to make a decision and have to be right. I'll play up against anybody in the world at this game under those conditions. Okay, but when you change it and you try and create something that, well, it increases the pool. I don't care about increasing the pool. Okay, I care about winning. So it may increase the pool size, but it reduces the payoff when you're right, So I don't like that. You know what I mean? I'd rather a $2 minimum, because that forces you to get out your past performances, make a decision and ride with your decision, not, use anybody who anybody likes. People walk through the grandstand. Who do you like? Who do you like? Who do you like? And for 50 cents, they could use them all. For 20 cents, they could use them and some others. So it really allows too many people to not really do the work and capitalize on it.
And John, I'm a guy who doesn't play horizontal betting. It would seem to me if they're overspreading, wouldn't that create opportunities for you to go in and do some large denomination bets on more favored types? Because if people are spreading when they really shouldn't, wouldn't it make a 5-2, 3-1, and a 4-1 a great pick three?
You would think so. And I used to think that, but the numbers just don't add up that way, because all of those spreaders, okay, and you attract people that normally don't bet horizontals. Now they're betting them because of that 50 cent thing. So they all have those horses too.
Right.
So it just, people say, well, the bigger pools will lead to bigger payouts. And like you just said, the example you cited, well, you'll get better value on a 2 or 3-to-1 shot because they're spreading. And it makes sense in theory, but it just doesn't play out that way in the numbers based on my observations. Now, I've never studied it forensically or, with charts or anything like that, but just from my own observation, I just don't see it. I see smaller payouts, especially on nice price horses. It used to be where you had, a 4-to-1, a 7-to-2, a 10-to-1, and a 6-to-1 and a pick four. You can get 4,000, you know what I mean, for $2, 5,600 for $2. Today, 800, 600, 400, just really low payouts. So that hurts. I mean, they completely killed the pick six wager, which was my favorite wager, and I gravitated to the pick four when it was a $2 bet. Then they destroyed that when they made that 50 cents and created the 50 cent pick five. And they just keep creating more wages and diluting the ones that they have.
Yeah.
I'm all for making it more of a skill game. Okay. $2 denomination minimum makes it more skill. You've got to back your opinion, or put up a lot of money to cover all those kind of horses. And then, the whales get their advantage because they're putting in that kind of money. But I like that. I like when they're putting $10,000 or $15,000 ticket. And I've done it. I bet, the biggest pick six ticket I ever hit was 600 grand. And I bet $9,600 to do it. So I'm not opposed to doing that, but I very rarely do things like that today. And I like when those whales put $15,000 into a pick six ticket that I'm putting 1,000 or 2,000 into, because I want to beat them that way. You follow me? I want to be able to beat them betting a lot less money. So you know, the bigger denomination is key for me, but I don't think we'll ever see it come back. You know, Naira tried a little bit making the pick six $1. I wish they would have gone to two. Helped a little bit, but you know, not really.
You're going to go from being the pick six king to the daily double king. This keeps up.
Yeah, no, I bet differently now. You know, yeah, you have to evolve with the game, Julian. You really do. You know, you got to play the hand you dealt, and you know, it's just a different game. If you don't evolve and adjust in this game, it'll swallow you up for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So what are some of the other vulnerabilities of the computer assisted wagers, the whales? You mentioned that, you know, there are times when you can hit them and you can get them good. I know that I like to play anything that requires a little subtlety, like for example, pedigree plays that are on the dam side. The whales don't tend to catch those. Certain trips, as you said before, right. Especially something that it's kind of your perception. Your perception is not in the form. Things that Jonathan Stettin sees. What are some of the vulnerabilities that the whales have?
Well, you know, to understand that first, you have to understand what they do and how they work. Okay. And there is so much misinformation about them out there. I actually got one to agree to an interview. Okay. CAW player. It's on Pastthewire. I forget the name of it. I think the name of the article was Horse Racing's Real Lifeline.
Yeah, I listened. It was good.
Okay, they make up a big percentage of the pool today. Okay, much more than you realize. If we got rid of them, like everybody wants to get rid of them, I don't know that the game would survive, honestly. And that's a concern. So I think we need them in the pool. So the key is, like you said, to know how to beat them. And to know how to beat them, first off, you have to know what they do. Okay. You know, they sign contracts to be able to bet direct into the you know, toad systems. They don't get access to unplayed combinations like people think that they do. But most of them do, if not all of them, is they have computer programmers, if they don't do it themselves, build a model that you feed information in. And past performances, Equibase will allow you to take information from them for a fee and take it in a format that goes right into your model, and your model can decipher it. Because you can't just take the PPs and put them in a model. It has to come in a specific format. Okay. And what they look for is, quote, what those individual players tend to look for. Okay. And tend to evaluate. And most of the time, they look at probability of winning versus odds. Okay. And they get real-time odds. So the last minute, they know the odds on this particular horse, and they can calculate what their wager and what other similar wagers from other players are going to do to those odds. So a lot of times horses that we see are 5-2, and we're betting thinking they're going to stay 5-2. They're betting, but they know they're going to go to 8-5 because they know what their bet is going to do to those odds. And they know that other models are seeing the same thing. So they look at probability of winning versus odds, okay? And how they come up with probability of winning is based on past performances and angles that they like, okay? So obviously, races with less information, they have a much lesser or lower win percentage than they do on races with a ton of information. You know, when you get these 12-5 claiming races for older horses, and every horse has 20 or 30 starts over a 5-year period, they have a tremendous edge over you. Okay, because that computer is going to recognize patterns and trends and different things for all these horses and compare all of that, which would take you or me 6 hours to do one race. You know, they do it in a sec. So they have, but like you said, trips, they can't see what a trained eye could see. Okay. So when I see something that's not picked up in the form, and some of those guys are sharp, they have spotters. I mean, I've consulted for some of them, and they've asked me about, you know, giving them trip notes and things like that. So they're on to that. Don't get me wrong. They're on to that. But that's where you can beat them. Okay. With your eyes. Okay. Also with things that don't show up in stats. Okay. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got a trainer who's a 5% trainer first time out, okay? And he's just not good first time out. And his record shows that. You look at formulated 5%, okay? But you know, I remember he won at Saratoga last year. He won 2 years ago, you know. But every year, that one that he wins is at Saratoga, okay? And then you go back and you look deeper, and you know what? Everyone that he wins, He blows out 3 furlongs, three days before the race. He doesn't do that all year long, all right? But that's what he does when he's going for it. You know what I mean? Computer model's not going to pick that up. You know, so you look for little subtleties, little idiosyncrasies, little nuances that a program won't pick up. Yeah. You know,
that was Carlos Martin 10 years ago. He would never win with the first timer. All of a sudden in Saratoga, he'd win with a 25-1. You're like, you don't win first time out, but he'd help once a year.
Because, he wants to win at Saratoga, and he would save a good one to run up there, and maybe it was a horse that's worth 50,000, and he says, hey, nobody claims for me first time out. I'm going to run this horse for 25. When you run a horse that's worth 50 for 25 first time out, you're going to win 9 out of 10 of the times.
That's right. Yeah.
So you know, things like that. That's where you can beat him, and. You know, I look at it like this. People want to get rid of them. I don't think the game could afford to get rid of them. So I'm like, okay, they're bumping a ton of money into these pools. I don't want to avoid the pools that they're in. I want to go into the pools that they're in and beat them. I need one horse to take them down, and that's it. And they're investing a ton more money than I am. So bring it on. Let's go. You know what I mean? I'll get you over the course of a year. You know, I'm not worried about that. Only takes 1 or 2 for me to take them down. You know, and when they lose hard. You know, they lose hard because they go big. So, you know,
a great example of what you just said is Kathleen O'Connell is great with first timers, and she trains for Stonehenge. Her and Michael Yates, they both train, so you know they have to be at their best because you don't want to lose that stable. And I remember a few weeks ago, you know, she had a first timer, and her stats didn't look that great in the form, which is surprising to me because everyone knows she's great with young horses. Horse 1 paid $26. I'm just like, you know, sometimes your own memory, your own instinct can bring winners that the statistics won't reveal.
I've learned to embrace that. You know what I mean? And there used to be years ago, okay, there was a boxer named Rocky Graziano, not Rocky Marziano. Everybody gets them confused, okay? And he used to do OTB commercials in New York City. And he would go into OTB and he would bet a horse and it would win. And they'd say, hey, Rocky, how'd you come up with that horse? He'd be like, I don't know. It just hit me. And he would smack himself in the head because he was a fighter, you know? And, you know, it was a joke back then. But it's not really a joke. Sometimes your gut instinct is the best thing that you could have. Yeah. It really is. And like you said, there is some stats that don't reflect what a trainer can do. And you'll still see on social media today, 2-3 years ago, it was more so. But you'll see, oh, Bill Mott's terrible with first-time starters. Nonsense. Yeah. Okay. Nonsense. All right. I know he's at what, 10%, 8%, 12% in the form. I think it's creeped up a little bit, but I've been making scores on Bill Mott first-time starters, especially at Saratoga, for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. 20 years.
Yeah. One thing about first-time starters, and he's really good at Gulfstream with them as well. One thing about first-time starters is the horses that get play are the really fast first-timers. And what happens is a lot of times these trainers, they get these horses that are bred for the distance, but they're class horses. And these horses will win and they'll win and they'll pay $30. And the stable didn't even know how fast they were. They're just class. They thought the horse is going to be great down the road. There's no doubt about it. But they just didn't know the horse was going to run early because he's not a speedball. Those are the first timers that I always want to get. Not the ones necessarily they go out and they go 44 and they win, but the ones that circle and they win late. Everyone's like, that horse, he wasn't tipped. Well, because they didn't think he was that fast.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. And more, another thing about me that's different than a lot of other players, Julian, I don't believe in tips. I don't want to know.
Me neither.
I don't care who likes their horse, who doesn't like their horse. You know what I mean? I'll make my own opinion. You know, trainers talking about horses, to me, I relate to parents talking about their kids. Okay. You know, it's the same thing, no different, you know, and the one thing that they almost all are guilty of is they never objectively evaluate the competition. So you may love your horse, but you know your horse is doing great going in and he's fast and he's beating the other horses in the morning that you're working them out with, but you don't know whose horse is also doing that in another barn. You know what I mean? That's my job to figure that out, you know? So, you know, I don't want to know who likes their horse and who. I'd rather know if you didn't like your horse, and even those win sometimes, because sometimes a trainer will enter a second horse in a race just to make the race go. and the other horse winds up winning, and everybody's there scratching their heads. The other Chad, the other Baffert, the other this one, the other that one, they win plenty of times.
Yeah, it's almost more value to bet the less regarded one, and just even though you'll win less times when it pays off, much better. So one real positive development that I've been hearing is they may bring fixed price wagering or like bookie type betting to some jurisdictions. That would be great for a guy like you. I don't think it's practical though.
Well, let's see how it plays out. What a lot of people don't realize is that casinos, even online casinos today, okay, let's say I bet 5,000 on this horse at fixed odds in a casino today, okay, and next week I bet another horse 5,000, and they both win. They're not taking my third bet. They cut you off fast as lightning. Okay. They know your IP address. If they catch you making a bet for me, okay, they'll cut us both off and won't pay the bet. You know what I mean? I mean, they have the complete upper hand. Anytime you wager offshore, you got to realize they make all the rules and you have no legal recourse. You're not going to go over there and sue anybody. You're not going to go over there, grab anybody by the throat and get your money. It's going to be a big hassle. How it works here, how it's working in Jersey, I don't know that anybody's really pummeling them in Jersey. But if they do, they're going to get cut off. You know what I mean? They're going to get cut off or get limited, where you get $50 or something like that is the most you can bet. So how it plays out and the dynamics of it remain to be seen. If they could figure out a way to make it work, yeah, I would absolutely be in favor of it. If they could figure out a way to make exchange wagering work, I would be way in favor of that. I mean, I would probably, if they made exchange wagering legal and properly regulated, I would probably just do nothing but offer a higher price than I think it's worth on certain horses and just take the action on it on horses I know that are going to lose. Yeah. And say, the horse is 8-5, I'll give you 5-2, bet whatever you want. You know what I mean? And if you put the money up and they make sure I have the money up and everything's hunky-dory, I'll go. The only problem with that is it just opens the door to so much more corruption in this game. And there already is a ton of it, you know what I mean? But what's to stop a trainer from, tranquilizing a horse and having somebody offer 3-1 on a horse that should be 8-5 and taking in $500,000 worth of action on some exchange. And, the horse is running on 200 milligrams of Tuinol or something like that. You know what I mean? Where he's going to trail the field, Yeah.
How about your thoughts? You put out a great video on the HISA legislation. It was really good. I implore all the listeners to go check it out on your website, and also it's on Handicapper's Insight as well. But are you optimistic? You haven't mentioned doping today. The last time I talked to you, and I reposted it on the group today because I wanted to kind of prime this interview. Are you optimistic in the effect, and you think the cheating is going to go down?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that, and I said this, I interviewed Lisa Lazarus. She's the CEO of HISA, and I think she was very straightforward and very forthcoming with her answers, and I don't think she dodged any questions. And I think I asked questions that most of us want to know. I'm optimistic that their intentions are in the right place. I don't know. I mean, let's wait and see. I'm hoping that it has a positive impact. I think we failed as an industry to properly police ourselves. I think that ship has sailed, and anybody that's saying, "Oh, we're going to get it right, we're going to do it better," I don't want to hear it. You had your chance. You know what I mean? You had 100 chances. You didn't do it. So now the federal government is doing it or trying to do it. And we all know that the federal government sometimes creates a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and a lot of complications, but hey, we blew it on our own. Now they get a shot at it. You know what I mean? So I think it's in all of our best interest to support them and try and work with them as opposed to fight them, because I don't think they're going away. I think if they go away, our whole sport may go away, because they're not going to say, you know what, HISA didn't work out. Go back to doing it your own way. We're out. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if HISA says, HISA, as I was corrected, if HISA says we can't control and or regulate this sport, what do you think is going to happen, Julie?
Yeah, it's not going to be a lot. It's going to shrink to maybe 2 or 3 jurisdictions, if that.
If that, right? If that, if HISA says we can't help these people, that this sport is not willing to cooperate, is not willing to do this. They say they can't run if we do that or this. That. I don't know what happens to the sport. I don't know that. The government says, okay, we're out. Just go back to your own thing. No worries. No harm, no foul. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think we need to learn a way to work with them, communicate with them, and I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, I see all the hiccups that everybody else sees and all the other concerns that everybody else sees. Somebody who was on my show the other day brought up a very interesting point, and I know you're somewhat of a legal minded guy and an analytical guy, so you'll be able to understand this. He goes, I live in a farm. Okay, I live on my farm. Okay, I have a training center on my farm. My home is on the farm property. Okay, HISA, according to their rules and regulations, has the authority, because my house is on my farm, to come into my house 24/7 and check for any kind of drugs or doping I might be doing to my horses. But what about my constitutional rights? What about a warrant? What about search and seizure? What about this? What about, and he started raising all these questions that I certainly don't know the answer to, but seemed like valid questions. He goes, the laws don't apply to them. I don't have my constitutional rights. They don't need a warrant. They don't. And, my gut reaction is, well, maybe they don't. Maybe, once you are licensed and agreed to be licensed and agreed to be governed a certain way, then maybe you forfeit those rights. But I don't know that. You know what I mean? I'm not a legal scholar or certainly smart enough to know. But all those kinds of things are like being talked about by people in the industry, and they're concerned about. So I don't know, and some people are just combative to them. Some people just don't want the government involved and are going to be against them no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my good friend JD Brown. He's a jockey agent, and he was Sugar Ray Leonard's a manager for many years. And
Wow.
they can go to agents' homes, jockey agents' homes, and some of the provisions do seem a little overly broad.
Right.
And the problem with it is people have the constitutional rights, and there's no other outlet for them to make a living in the game if they don't do it. So,
Right.
it could be tricky. I talked to Terry Finley of West Point Thoroughbreds about this. I don't know if you saw the interview, but he's a real conservative politically. And I felt like asking him, I was like, Terry, all of a sudden you want big government involved. You spent your whole life talking about get the federal government out of our lives, and now you're begging the federal government to come in. And it was just funny.
It's it's interesting, and I think that the climate we see in politics today has really permeated into everyday society. Okay, it doesn't really matter today whether you're a Democrat or Republican. They get so etched in on either side that they can't see the forest for the trees. Yeah. People will vote against their own interest, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. If you're a Democrat, okay, and you're voting for something that's against your interest just because you're voting for a Democrat, my opinion, you're a fool. If you're a Republican and you're voting for something against your own, I know a lifelong Republican the other day, hardcore conservative, all right, that's telling me, oh, they got to get rid of Social Security, they got to get rid of these entitlements, they got to get rid of welfare, they got to get rid of disability. I was like, well, wait a minute. You're on disability for 20 years. Your wife is on disability. You get that check at the first of every month. You ever send it back? Did you ever not cash it? Can you survive without? I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, and you see that all across to the point where now you even see it in horse racing. Nobody, present company excluded, but almost nobody, Julian, will listen to somebody's point of view and actually think about it if it doesn't align with their own.
Yeah.
I very rarely get involved in social media conversations anymore because I know if somebody's gonna thinks today's Thursday, I could hold up the newspaper, I could hold up the calendar, I could hold up everything in the world that says it's Wednesday. They're going to think it's Thursday.
Yeah.
What's the point?
I used to love debating politics, and now you can't because you alienate
No.
people. It's
Right, and they want to get nasty. They want to they want to kill you, curse you. It is. I don't bother anymore either. And I used to enjoy it myself. Like I never believed that we shouldn't be able to discuss politics and religion if we don't agree. So
yeah,
what? We don't agree. We don't have to all agree. We could still be able to discuss it. I like hearing other point of views. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But
yeah, can't do it. Yeah, you really can't do it anymore. And most of it is we get. It's hard to have democracy if you get bad information from the media, and that's the problem. There, we don't have facts anymore. We just have opinions, and that's the basis of all of our problems. I think that the problems start from there, and then there's other problems as well. But let's get back.
100% about that. But go ahead. Let's get
Yeah, I want to get back to racing because people want to hear your thoughts on the game. Not that we don't want to hear your thoughts on that as well. Me and Chuck Simon and Barry, we argue all the time about the best way to get people into the game, to teach people about the game. And, one thing that they talk about a lot, and I don't want to speak for them, but they do say that like the personalities that we have on air, on horse racing coverage, don't always do the best job in informing the customer, the bettors about the game and teaching. And so my whole thing is the game is so tough. I've been at this game almost as long as you. I think you're probably a little older than I am, but not much. But I've been handicapping the races for probably 30, 38, 40 years. Read a lot of books, written a lot about it. I love the game. It's very tough. I don't even know how to teach people about handicapping. If you ever notice, whenever I write about the game and Handicapper's Insight, I'm just trying to nibble at the edges, just trying to get some things that can help. Just to frame of mind, how to attack the whales. When there are opportunities. To me, it's very hard to break the game down and actually teach. Like for example, we all know the early speed is important, but so does the odds board. I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, it is like the most worthless conversation now when you talk about many of the important elements of handicapping. What do you think about that? How do you teach people how to handicap? Can you teach people? I mean, where do you send people that want to learn?
There's limited quality resources. I try and do a lot of seminars and write a lot about it and share a lot of my experiences with the hope of teaching people. But the problem is I don't have nearly big enough a platform or following to make an impact. Okay. And the people that do really do a horrible job at it. Okay. You're not going to really learn anything about handicapping from watching any of the telecasts. Okay. You're not going to learn anything that's going to make you a better player. Knowing a horse, gained weight since his last race and filled out since he was a 2-year-old and is on the muscle and is not sweating like he was last time, it's not going to help you make any money. It may help you cash a ticket, but it's not going to teach you how to fish. It's going to give you a meal, so to speak, to use that old analogy. I think that in order, I mean, the media coverage of the sport has to completely change to educate people and put on much better telecasts, even for people like ourselves who are somewhat educated on it and enjoy it. So I think that we have a long way to go with the coverage and the way that we present our sport. I think we need to really take a long, hard look at that. And I wrote an article about that recently, about how we should have riders mic'd up during races.
Yeah, right. It was good.
So we could hear them talking and stuff like that. But as far as handicapping, you can't learn handicapping from people who don't bet. Okay. There's nothing that you can teach me if you don't bet. You know what I mean? That's like, a guy who's never been in the ring trying to teach you how to fight, it just doesn't work, and a lot of the people that hold themselves out as betters on in media positions are not what I would call a better. You know what I mean? You need real betters, hardcore players that are willing to teach and explain betting. And one of the things I said in that article is, instead of talking about cocktails and dresses and mint juleps and hats on the Derby show, they should have a half hour where you have one or two real players, not fake players, not media people, not people that are on TV every day giving out tickets that can't win before the gate opens, real players, and talk about how, hey, this is how I'm going to structure my Kentucky Derby pick 5, and this is why, and this is what I look for, and this is why I'll single this horse and not this horse. Stuff that people can learn and take with them. We don't do anything like that. Nothing like that. We have guys on there that, give out ridiculous tickets just hoping to cash, or, saying, well, if somebody cashes, they'll be happy and they'll come back. No, it's not working. So obviously that's not the answer. If this is truly a skill game and they believe that, which it is, it's a very hard skill game, and it's a skill game loaded with intangibles, but it is a skill game. It has to be presented as such and taught as such. And we don't have anyone who does that. And the tickets that they give out as suggested plays, and even some of the opinions that they give out to a professional player or a serious player, are downright laughable. It's an embarrassment to anybody that knows what's going on. So we've got a long way to go with that. And really, there's nobody in the media out there that does not fall into that category. I'm sorry to say, just nobody. And I'll give you a perfect example. Richard Migliori, great guy, gives a lot of good information out. He's not a bettor, okay? He's not a gambler. He doesn't, if he bets a little bit for recreation. And I don't know that to say factually, I would bet $1,000 against $1 that's the truth. Okay, because I just know a bettor when I talk to one. I know a guy who really bets. I'll give you an example. The other day, somebody said, "Oh, I like this horse a little bit. I think he's going to really run a big race." On one of the telecasts, I don't even remember who it was, and the horse was like 18-1 and ran third. So afterwards, they gave props. Wow, what a great pick! 18-1 ran third. I really hope you bet. I guess you hope you bet show. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, do they just want to hear themselves talk? Do they just want to, I mean, I guess he hoped he bet him to show, I guess. Otherwise, he lost if he bet him to win, So, a lot of these people don't bet, and the ones that do give out, horrible information. And the worst of them are the ones that truly believe that they know what they're doing and are experts, and come across very, authoritative and almost condescending sometimes, and they really don't have a clue, I saw one of them, and a friend of mine laughs at this very, very recently. Listen to the guy next to him talking about a horse, okay? And then, they switched the camera to him, and they never took the camera off the two of them at the table. And he goes, you made such a good point on that horse. I added him to my pick 4 ticket. And I wanted to say, telepathically? Because you've been on camera the whole time. You didn't pick up your phone, and unless you winked at somebody there. I don't know how you added him. You didn't add him. Next thing you know, they're in the gate, they run the race. So guy was clearly lying to the public on national broadcast, being promoted as an expert. You know what I mean? That's what we do. I mean, what are we playing? 3-card Monte? I mean, come on, man. How are you going to attract an intelligent audience and an intelligent person who wants to learn in the game and is watching this, saying, hey, maybe there's something to this game, and you see that?
Yeah. Well, last question, John. This is great as always. So many nuggets here. I noticed, and you're not good at hiding your moods. I noticed you're very optimistic, and you seem more enthusiastic about the game than the last time we talked. But that was during the pandemic, and
that's because you said I was negative, and I'm trying to be positive.
Yeah, this is all for me. But I could tell you're enthusiastic, and you're more optimistic now than you were last time. What are some of the things that you're optimistic about in our game?
You're reading me wrong. I'm a poker player. All right. I'm coming across more optimistic because I like you. I think you're a good guy. I enjoy your show. I enjoy what you do for the game and what you bring for the table. So that is making it appear I am more optimistic. I'm trying to be positive. I think I'm more optimistic, more with some of the stuff we're doing with Past the Wire and Past the Wire TV than with the game itself. My optimism to the game is limited to cautiously optimistic that HISA will make an impact over time. Cautiously optimistic that enough people are getting concerned about the perception of the game and realizing that we've got to make some serious changes for the sport to survive. But there's so much more to it, Julian, than we could even cover in a show like this. I mean, the amount of horses that go to slaughter and that are in kill pens today that have won literally millions of dollars on the racetrack is sad and pathetic. Those that know me well know I'm big in animal rescue, and it's a big conflict of mine with our sport. There should be no thoroughbred racehorses that go to slaughter or go to kill pens. Owners are not held accountable enough, and all we do in that area is not nearly enough. So I'm optimistic that we're starting to become aware as an industry that, hey, if we don't make some hard changes, we might not be around in 5 years. And I think that that's the first step. It's kind of like admitting you're an alcoholic is the first step to not becoming one, or a drug addict, or a compulsive gambler, or anything that you want to correct. The first thing is realizing that there's something to correct. And I think for the first time as an industry now, we're realizing that, hey, we can't just say people are going to bet no matter what, and they're going to bet on anything no matter what, and we're just going to ride this out forever, and it's always going to be here. I think that people are realizing now that that might not be the case, and that's my biggest optimism, if you want to know the truth. The other stuff is really, sad to say, but selfish. I'm glad where Past the Wire has come and the impact that we make and what we bring to the table, because I think that that's really good. I'm glad for people like yourself that bring some good positive stuff to the table. Barry and Chuck as well bring some positive stuff to the table. So I think that social media has given platforms to people that could make a difference, not just the people that are front and center on mainstream, who I think are failing at it. So I'm optimistic about that. And selfishly, I've learned to play the game in this arena. So I'm still successful at it. So they didn't get me yet. You know what I mean? I can still do it, enjoy it, and selfishly be successful at it, despite my reservations and my conflicts about it. But that's the best I could say. We got a long way to go. We really do. I don't sugarcoat that. I think we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, look, Jonathan, let's do this more often. I always love talking to you.
My pleasure.
Every time I went back and looked at both of our interviews, there were so many nuggets, and there's been things that happen, and like every time Sano wins, I think about things that you said. I mean, there's so many nuggets that you provide when we talk. So we got to do this more than once every couple of years.
Anytime, man. My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, this is great. Well, John, good luck today, and hope to talk to you soon, buddy.
Oh, my pleasure, Julian. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime, buddy. You're welcome. All right, bye-bye. Yep.